first thing you want to do is take off your props. So get those out of the way. And then if you have your SD card in it, you want to make sure you remove the SD card. Take out your SD card. Because when you separate the body, if that SD card's in there, the body's not going to want to come off. So first, let's just flip it over. And the tools you're going to need are a small Phillips screwdriver. You can see I got a double aught, and then a number 6 Torx. I think you can see that. And then I have a little pry tool here, and I have tweezers. So you're going to want to remove all the screws first, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the camera out of here. So you're going to take your number 6 Torx, remove these two. My hands will get in the way, but I think this is probably the best view for you. So remove 2 screws. Just take this, put it aside. And how you put your tools, how you keep your tools and your parts, your screws and all that, that's up to you, but you do want to be organized in how you place them. So now 2 small Phillips screws, very, very small. What I do is I keep my screws with the parts that came off with them. So I'm keeping all these parts right here as one. Take this little plate, put it aside, and then remove the camera. Now when you remove this camera, it's very simple, but you want to be careful with this. I like to use something to pry it, and my pry tool is a little bit too big, so I simply just take a very tiny screwdriver, put it on the corner, and flip it right out. And then take the camera out. So we're removing the camera. Have that all out of the way. Now we need to go ahead and take these off. And there's a lot of hidden screws in this thing, so this is only the second time I've taken one apart, so you got to bear with me. But we're going to take all these screws out here, and I'll fast forward through this part. And then inside here, it's hard to see because it's black in there, but you can see there's a screw here and then one over here. So we're going to take those out. And then just double check, make sure I got them all. Because removing this, we do not want to crack anything. So now, any videos you've seen where people are taking these shells apart, it is not as easy as you would think it is. When you're looking at those videos, this is not as easy as it looks. These are snapped together pretty tight, and I'm going to start with the front. Just bend my legs down a little bit to get it to set nice and stable. And then I just want to pry. Now that part comes off easy, but actually the rest did come off. I just worked on one where it was very hard. So this one came apart nicely. So far, we're not done yet. There we go. So there's your bottom shell. So I lied to you. It comes off very easily. Some of them are very hard. The one I worked on, it felt like it was glued together. And but that wasn't mine. That was for somebody else. So here we're looking at the bottom. This is your sensors and everything. Now we need to get the top cover off. And then this is where you find the hidden screws. We have 2 screws on the sides that we have to replace next, and those are Phillips. So we're going to remove those. So now we have these sides out. And then we have in the front, we have 2 screws right here. And again, remember, this is only my second time doing this, so bear with me. Yeah, those screws are the same, so keeping all my cover screws together. And then you'll find down in here, you're not going to be able to see it, but right down in here, there is 2 small screws. Yeah, it's black down in there and the screws are black, so you're not going to see it, but there's one here and there's one over here, so we're going to remove those. Okay, so there's another cover screw. And then in the back, you'll see we have one right here. You can see those. And one right here. We'll remove those. Right here in the nose. You have one here and one here. So you have this bracket, your sensor. I think it's just the bracket for the sensor. It might be the whole sensor. I think it's just the bracket. So again, what I did was I felt a little resistance. And they're not coming out. They're unscrewing, but they're not coming out. So that's where tweezers come in handy. Same type of screw. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and take that screw out. Put that aside with the body parts. There's 2 screws back here. Here's another shell just so I can make sure I got all my screws. We got the 4 in the back. We got all these here in the front. We got these hidden ones. There are no other screws. There's nothing else holding us on here. The only thing that holds you on is these sensors, and you kind of got to separate from them. So just keep trying to separate from them, because that's what's holding us in place. So you got to spread it as you try to get it off there. So let's just try this one side at a time here. Sorry guys, but I warned you. This is not easy. You feel like you're gonna break it, and you definitely don't want to do that when you're trying to fix it in the first place. There we go. So it's gotten past those. Just gotta press until it comes undone, and don't worry, you're not hurting anything. It just sounds like you are. So there we are. We are off. So that was tough. And I mainly make it tough because I just don't want to break it. So that's my shell, and this is somebody else's shell. So my top shell came off very hard. So just give you a look here. This is what she looks like naked. Very well built. All right, so we have the cover off. Let's show you the one we're going to be replacing. This one right here. But before we do that, let's go over all the other sensors. So you have this one here. In order to replace it, or the back two, you see the back two here, you have to remove this bracket here. These never want to come out. They always want to stay in that bracket. Just these two. Always give me a hard time. Set of tweezers come in handy as well. Goodness. And then take this center one out. And the front one will just stay with the sensor because it has a retaining nut on the back of it right here. You have some thermal pads. They call it a thermal silicone pad, but you have that on the back. And then these are Phillips. The reason I pointed that out is it'll feel a little sticky when you try to lift it. You want to try to avoid too much contact with that with your fingertips. You don't want to get oil on those conductive pads. So you want to take this bracket off. You got two there. You want to lift this up and take this bracket off. And then you have this still screwed in place, and those screws are right here. So we're not going to take them off, but I'll show you. They're down here. One here, and then one here. Okay. So I just showed you those two screws. Once you undo those two screws, then it comes loose, and you unplug this one, and then you unplug this one and pull the sensor off. Put the new sensor on, plug everything in, screw it back in, you're good to go. This sensor plugs in right here, and then here, and here. And then you simply put it all back on. Okay, so that's on. All these are back on. That covers that sensor and those two. Now the front sensors, I'm not even going to take it apart. These are just so easy. You take out these two screws, take out these 4 screws, and then you lift that bracket off. Once you lift that bracket off, you unplug it here and here. Real simple. Put your new one back on, screw it in place, bring your wires up, plug it in, put that bracket on, and put in these 3 tiny screws and this long screw. So now we're going to replace the one that actually needs replaced, and it will be the exact same procedure for the other side, but we have to undo all of them. And this top one I'll show you as well. So you undo the sides. You have to do them all. If you're only replacing one, you have to undo them all, because we have to get this bracket lifted. And then when you replace these sensors, they're all plug and play. So I'm just going to pull this out like that. Pull this one out like that, down to the side, and then we have this one here. We're going to take this screw out in the middle, take the one out in the back. We're just going to lift it up, and you got to be careful. There's a rubber grommet here and here. You want to make sure they don't fall off, but we're just going to lift it up and let it stand up out of the way. And then these are Phillips. We remove all these tiny screws. It is 6 of them. So now that bracket comes loose and you can pull it out of the way. So just to show you, you have this, you can't see that. For the top sensor, you have this cable and that cable. The plugs are right there. Show you from the other side so you can see the actual plugs. Right here and right here. You unplug them, slide them out of the bracket. That bracket you can move back. It's got that slot that goes up front here to go over that cable and put it back in place. So for the other side, this one here, like I showed you, unscrew the sides, you unplug here and here. Okay? And then for the one we are going to replace, pull all this aside and we unplug here and here. Here's our new one. Nice brand new. Part numbers all match up. Every part I've gotten so far has been genuine parts. And you'll notice here you have a rubber grommet, a black one and a white one. You want to make sure those don't fall off. And they just kind of falls right into it when you put it on. So let's snap it together. And you always make sure you're lined up, and you'll hear a little click. Never force these. You will bend them. So now we can slide this back up in place. And I think that covers every sensor on this quad. So now we put all our 6 little tiny screws back in with the Phillips. So make sure your grommets are in place and set it right on top there. Put these screws back in place. Alright, so if you notice this one here, how that cable folds when you bring this in, we're going to create the same on this side. So let's put this one back together. Can't see the screw holes. Just snug them up really nice. You don't have to lock them in. And then we're going to create that same fold on this side. And then just kind of press it down a little bit. And put these in place. Again, make sure your rubber grommets are there. You have a black one in the front, white in the back. I don't know why. It's just how they do it. Those are the type of things that make me wonder though. And you don't want to leave these, you don't want to over tighten these, but because those rubber brackets or grommets, you don't want to completely crush them and squeeze them out, but you don't want to under tighten them because then it's very hard to put your shell back on. So that's the rest of the sensors. Now we have brand new sensors on the sides, and put everything back together. So I'll just edit in the video where I have already done that and showed you. from a previous video, but this is how you change all the sensors. So from here, it'll be just putting the shell back on, and that will be the end of the video. So enjoy the rest of the video. Check all your cables, just go over everything. There is no rush to do this job. Just make sure you did everything nice and secure in putting it back. You can go back and double check, oh, did I tighten up all my screws? Things like that. Now let's see if this top goes back on, or bottom, I'm sorry, if the bottom goes back on hard or easy. Now be very careful with this screen. You want to be extremely careful with that. That is very thin. So let's flip her over, line her up, line up your sensors, and then, actually, I'm sorry, no, we want the top first. That was the hard part because of these sensors here. So put this on and line up our sensors right here and here. I'm just going to bring it down slow. This side's close. Okay, I heard it. Yep. Now this side looks like it's in too. It goes back a lot easier than it comes off, that's for sure. Holy man. Let's put this back on before I forget to do that. I believe that goes like that. Nope. This goes like that. Because we have screw there, and there we go. Snap, snap. Now we're lined up. See? So everything just kind of snaps back in. You just want to go around and make sure it's all snapped. And now we can start putting all our screws back together. This is probably where you don't need to watch anymore. But we'll just start putting it back together. Spread my screws out. So we got these two screws in the back. Now, let's put this top cover on. Remember, you just have to look at what snaps in. This is probably best to put this front in first. Nope, it's not going to. You have to line these up first, like, yeah. Then press that front in. Everything's snapping. Okay, back is snapped. Front is snapped. Everything is snapped. You want to make sure everything is fully snapped before you put your screws in, because if not, you might break something when you tighten your screws up. So let's start with the front here. We're on the home stretch, guys. All the screws there are back in. I have no screws left there. All I have left here is the camera and then these. Okay, this looks like something back from Back to the Future. Okay, everything looks good. And let's put the camera back in place. So you drop the camera down in here. It's got these two little holes. They go into the front here. And you'll feel them fall into place. And then snap that back together. like that. Okay, now that we have it all back together, we just want to double check, connect everything, make sure we have no prompts or errors on the screen, and make sure nothing else was harmed in the process, because anytime you go and take it apart and do something, you can always harm something else. So let's just power this on. Everything else is good. Power this on, and I'm just watching the gimbal to make sure it powers up and calibrates. Yep, good to go.
AVI mode.
So now it's just going to say,
Video link signal is weak.
come on lady, I don't want to do my firmware update. Okay, gimbal's not ready. Now that should go away soon. And that's gone. No issues on the screen here. I don't have an SD card in it, but we'll start it. Ready to go. And that's it. So hopefully that helps for anybody that needs to replace a sensor or 2 or 3 on your Autel Evo 2. And if you're new to my channel, well, first off, give that thumbs up on your way out. If you're new to my channel, subscribe, and as always, hit that bell for future content and notification, and we'll catch you on the next video. Peace.